Hello, I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio, and welcome to a forum of candidates running for the seat on the Contra Costa College Board for Ward 5, which covers Pittsburgh, Antioch, Oakley, Brentwood, Discovery Bay, and Bay Point. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division, CCTV, and the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and West Contra Costa. We're holding this roundtable via Zoom, so there may be some issues, and we're taping it in the studios of CCTV. I also want to mention the names of the candidates may have their campaign email address if you'd like to contact them. The candidates for this office are Greg Enholm and Fernando Sandoval. We'll begin the forum by asking questions for each person to answer. While the time is not monitored, please be mindful of the length of your answers, as we want to give both candidates the time to tell the voters their thoughts and platforms. So, Fernando, if elected, what's going to be your top priority?
My top priority will to go to the Community College Board and restore the sense of trust between the Community College Board and the faculty and the community. There's a lack of that at the moment, and I think that is the number one thing that we need to do.
And Mr. Enholm.
Well, my top priority for my next four-year term is to have our college district work with city, county, and statewide economic development officers to attract startup firms by offering to train their workers at their site for a small additional cost of about $3 a day. I believe that would make the difference for many small startup firms to decide to locate in East Contra Costa, or for that matter, in Richmond and other parts of the county. This is something that has worked well with USS POSCO, and it's been a big success.
If I remember correctly, you have three colleges, Contra Costa, DVC, and Los Medanos. How are they faring during this pandemic? The school has just started, right?
Well, college is just starting. We're not a school. That's very important because our biggest challenge is, seriously, our biggest challenge is not having students who are not at all familiar with college get confused. Because if you say school, they say, well, I've already been in school. And we reach out to our school districts and we make presentations to show the difference between school and college. And particularly now that we have, my second priority is that I used to teach high school. I taught high school for 10 years. In 2015, the law changed dramatically. It is now possible for any high school student in any class to be upgraded. For instance, high school history can become college history. Now, what's great about this is the legislature said that class will actually count twice. It'll count for the high school diploma and for a college degree. We are ramping up that program and expect, frankly, that it'll improve.
Are the students doing distance learning?
Yes, all of our students, with a few exceptions, are doing distance learning, and that is our response to the national effort to control the pandemic.
And how is that working? Because my recollection is that there are some students who don't have stable internet. They may not have new computers. Is that a challenge?
You're talking about school districts now. That's an entirely different situation. We are highly organized. We work with Cal State East Bay. We work with actually UC Berkeley. So we are in an entirely different situation and I agree completely with you. I attend the school district meetings, and yes, that is a major problem, not for us. We had actually the foresight to, ordered by the board, me included, having been a college professor, all of our faculty was trained to do online. So when we made the dramatic shift over about a 2-week period, the faculty had already been trained. And we knew we needed to have computers. We were all set with that. So we need to get some credit here. We really were thoughtful in advance by having all the faculty have training so that when the emergency occurred, we were ready.
And the students all have what they need at home as far as internet and computers?
Well, now, be careful on that. We have personnel who will help them with that, but that's one of the reasons why I work with the city councils. I particularly want to commend who has endorsed me, and I've endorsed him, council member in Pittsburgh, Jelani Killings. He has been very active in connecting Pittsburgh residents with Los Medanos College, and I thank him for that.
Fernando, how are the students faring when it comes to this distance learning? Are there problems for the students who are attending the colleges?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems there. I can tell you that in the very beginning, because they have their bookstores closed, trying to get the books puts them behind. Trying to understand how to learn using the technology of distance learning is difficult for them. Not all students learn the same way. Not being able to communicate with the cohorts or faculty right then is a problem. Enrollment is way down. The faculty themselves, they work really hard in order to train themselves for distance learning, but it's still a work in progress. The same thing, it goes beyond the faculty, it's the students, because trying to learn remotely is very challenging with them trying to balance the work life and also trying to get access to the resources. I myself initiated with Northern California Rotary a Closing the Digital Divide initiative to provide funding for students in Pittsburgh and going across Contra Costa County. We're doing that with the high schools, and we're going to be working as well going forward with everyone else. So it's still very difficult. COVID-19 is like the number one issue that's impacting the college, having to do with budgets going forward, trying to understand how to communicate with these students so they can learn. Also, additionally, the college has a lower enrollment, which means lower fees for a lot of their programs. So it's going to be a challenge. We're waiting for legislative action so they can go ahead and adopt the right budgets, because kids are going to be impacted going forward.
Yeah, I would imagine with enrollment being down, you lose the fees they pay, any kind of support you might get from the state. It's not. You're shaking your head, Mr. Enholm. Talk to me.
Yeah, again, I know that I'm the trustee and he's the challenger. It's very important to understand that the legislature and the governor agreed to keep our revenues fixed for this year. Now, he's correct going forward. Enrollment has dropped about 10%. I don't consider that a big drop. From a practical, and that's not necessarily enrollment, that's the actual course loads that they're taking. Remember, most of our students are part-time, not full-time. So I don't want to give the wrong impression here. We have a AA+ bond rating. And if we were in any sort of trouble, I can assure you, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch would be sending out notices that we're in trouble. We are not. But he is correct. It will be a challenge next year because we don't know what will happen to the state budget next year. Of course, we're all hoping that the economy will recover and that we will not have a major drop in state revenue.
You talk about the Standard & Poor's and your bond rating, but how does that help the student who's having trouble buying a laptop?
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Students need buildings, right? Now it's online, but the plan is to go back to having our buildings, particularly for laboratory classes, any sort of class that needs projection. It's really much better to do it in a classroom. And you need to understand something. For the most part, our buildings are funded by our voters, and that's crucial. At my second board meeting 8 years ago, I made a presentation, hadn't just been elected, saying that we needed to go out for another bond. That was 2012. We had a successful bond in 2002 and 2008. I thought that now was the time to go out for another bond. I was absolutely delighted that the West County trustee sitting to my left said, I agree, and the South County trustee to his left said, I agree, and the chancellor at the time, Helen Benjamin, said, I guess we're going out for another bond. It was $450 million. It was approved by voters agreeing to tax themselves to put these great buildings up. There are two buildings that are absolutely desperately needed. Unfortunately, we can't open them. There's the Student Activity Center, which is not just for students, it's also for the community. You can have weddings there, quinceañeras. It has the bookstore, which, by the way, we need to be careful with earlier statement. The pandemic with the semester was already underway, so most students would have had their books. That is a concern, though, going future, the next term. But we were planning to have a window. So it's important. We also have a physical education facility that was built in 1974 that was in terrible shape. It was ripped down, and now we have a very great facility that physical education students will be able to use 4 different areas for weight training, dancing, and even sort of yoga, things like that.
Greg, what campus would that be on?
That's the Los Medanos campus at 2700 Leland Road.
Right.
I urge people who are out driving to just drive by the campus. If you go into the back lot, you'll see these 2 beautiful buildings that quite frankly, I proposed. And immediately 2 trustees agreed with me because they had buildings that they wanted to have done. And that's very important, is that it's my connections. I'm a 24-year resident of East Contra Costa. I know all the elected officials. I also know of elected officials across the county. Quite frankly, I helped campaign for Congressman McNerney and Congressman DeSaulnier to get elected to Congress. So I have the contacts to have them endorse this sort of bond, which makes it much more likely it'll be approved.
Okay. Fernando, I went to community college many years ago. We're talking back in 1976. And that's when Prop 13 passed. So many people will say it devastated education because of the funding cuts. There's a measure on the ballot now called Prop 15 that I think may restore some of that funding. Fernando, do you support that?
Hey, before I answer that question, I want to talk about Greg's experience for the bond. You know, I myself was the chairman of the Bond Oversight Committee, Pittsburgh Unified Schools District, for modernizing that district. You know, and we talked about how great we were as far as Moody's in the district. So I'm trying to figure out why Greg led for not renewing the contracts of the most qualified CFO that the district has had, okay, in 10 years, fully supported by the faculty, had the highest evaluation ratings. I'm trying to understand that as a trustee who really cares, that knows about finance, how he can go ahead and not renew his contract, okay? Bonds, yeah, you're gonna be part of a trustee, 1 of 5 that are gonna approve that. Yeah, I have a lot of endorsements as well as he does. I have over 40 endorsements right now from people in the community. So I just want to go back to talk to that bond issue and the chief financial officer, because it's imperative that the board of trustees have the right people in place to oversee the critical finances of the district. And I believe we're in peril because of it.
What about Prop 15?
You know, Prop 15, yeah, we need to go ahead and that proposition, we need to make sure that we support that so we can have more funding for schools going forward, okay, because it will reevaluate who can go ahead and be included for the additional funding revenues. There's going to be some exemptions, but anything we can to get some additional revenues to help support our school systems, I'm all for it.
And Greg, I'm assuming you support it too?
Yes, I've endorsed it and I support it. I also want to emphasize that, again, it's our community that unfortunately was not allowed to have a parcel tax back in 2012, which was passed by 66.17% of the voters become effective because that Proposition 13 required 2/3. Now, what I want to emphasize to you is that it's entirely possible that by working with the community, and the California Supreme Court has allowed this, that parcel tax could come back as a citizen initiative. Just take all the same language, have, however, petitions signed by community members so it goes on the ballot. That, according to the California Supreme Court, and there are court cases on this, would be passable by 50% plus 1, and I strongly would support that. I supported the 212 one as well, 2012.
This would be a parcel tax for homeowners, or would it also include businesses?
All parcels. All parcels. It would, again, you need to look at the details in the parcel tax measure, but essentially it would be a $12 pass. Now, again, if you look what happened to the East Contra Costa, the East Bay Regional Park District, in 2018, they had a $12, by coincidence, parcel tax. 83% of the voters approved that. So I think that we can easily have 50% plus one if we have a citizen initiative. And we could use the money, as Fernando has pointed out. We could use the money.
Fernando, is that a good idea to try to get that parcel tax passed?
A parcel tax, they're very good because they're specific to programs. A lot of residents will go ahead and pass a parcel tax for some specific areas. It's not a general obligation bond. It's totally different. And when they understand what the use of that parcel tax is going to be for, they'll be all in, just like Greg said. And I think that's a good use of the public's money for investment and education. And I hope the citizens will go ahead and continue to support those kind of measures.
What do you say to those people who say, well, the parcel tax only affects homeowners and property owners, it doesn't affect renters? Is that fair?
The parcel tax actually affects everyone. You got to understand that when a property owner gets hit, they're going to pass on that cost to the renter. Okay. But however, the key thing is to understand that it's important for everyone to acknowledge that education of our community, is paramount for an essential workforce and the economic well-being and health of the community. So that will help everyone in the long run. And that's what we have to consider.
Greg, my experience with boards and districts like this, when you have meetings, you don't often get a lot of people at these meetings unless there's something very controversial or something people really care about. How do you increase community engagement?
Well, that's actually an excellent question. And as I was mentioning earlier, given that the Sierra Club didn't know that we have a student trustee, for the next 4 years, now that I'm retired, keep something in mind that when I was first elected in 2012, I had 51% of the vote. There were two challengers. There was 40% for one and 9% for the other. And then I was reelected in 2016 with 60% of the vote and 40% for Fernando. My concern as I'm listening now is that I need to spend more time now that I'm retired. I used to be teaching. I taught for 14 years. So now that I'm retired, I will be going to city council meetings, school board meetings, and even special district meetings, talking more about what our college district has done in the past, is doing now, and will do in the future. And I think that the problem here is if you have a AA bond rating, your finances are fine. If you're able to educate all the students who want to be educated, which we're doing, there's not much controversy. Although I do want to address what Fernando mentioned, and that is he neglected to mention we have a new chancellor who's coming in most likely January 2nd, 2021. That person has not been selected yet. The process is still underway. The three trustees that he's referring to are all the senior trustees. One with 10 years, me with 8, and another with 8. We're the ones who are very concerned that what he's advocating is essentially lock-in personnel that new chancellor may not want. And this is something that really troubles me because the unions are great. I've been a member of 4 labor unions, and they were all wonderful. I even went on strike with one of them. It was really something. I have a photograph I can show you. I may put it on my webpage. But from a practical standpoint, unions should not be controlling our district. The people who control the district, by the way, are the owners of the district, which was voted into existence in 1948. And he's doing exactly what he should do. He is challenging me to replace me when I had 60% of the vote against him last time, and he didn't. But that's his right as a citizen. I encourage that. I don't like elections that have no challenge. I think that's really important to have challenge.
Fernando, this is not your first time running, so what are you going to do differently this time?
I'm going to do a lot of things different. I tell you what, I ran in 2016. I was a challenger against an established incumbent. I ran a totally grassroots campaign. I received 40% of the vote, even with that grassroots campaign. A lot of elected officials know me, so even at that, I did very well. This particular campaign, I actually started working for this particular campaign back in 2016. I just didn't start working now. I've been involved with the community. I've been involved in leadership positions. I have endorsements of many community trustees among all the communities that we serve, city councilmen. I have the endorsement of Dolores Huerta. I have the endorsement of Peter Garcia, who is a retired president of Diablo Valley College and Las Medanas College. I have the endorsement of the Laborers One Classified Professionals Union right now, faculty for the community college district. And what I'm doing different is I've engaged a professional campaign team who has a really good record in getting my message out to the voters, okay, and ensuring that as I go to the voters that they understand why I'm running. And I'm not running for me. I'm running for the students, for the parents, for the children, for the grandkids. I'm running for the voices of all those who endorsed me, because it's not about me, it's about the future. And that's what's different for me this year, is that I'm able to get the support of so many in all these different communities in which we serve.
If you say you don't win, how will you stay involved to see the things you want to see come to fruition?
Well, I'm still involved with the Pittsburgh Unified School District. I'm still on the Bond Oversight Committee. I still go to the city council meetings, the school board meetings. I sit down and talk to all those different people in the community that endorse me. I've actually started a East County Education Advisory Committee to make sure that we can put those voices to work and provide those messages to the board. And also I'm involved in the Northern California Gateway Rotary, whose one of the primary concerns is education. So I will continually be involved. I just published a book, okay, that talks about identity, motivation, and achievement. And I've been doing seminars on that to elementary school kids, to high school kids, to college students. So I'm not going away regardless of the outcome of the election. There's a lot of good people out there, and I wish to keep serving.
And Greg, say for instance, Fernando wins. How will you stay involved?
Oh yes, I had a 17-year career as a financial analyst, and that's roughly comparable to what Fernando did. But then I decided I wanted to have a major shift, so I became a classroom teacher for 14 years. And that's what I think is the main reason why I won in 2012 and 2016, and quite frankly, I'm likely to win now, is that voters understand that what trustees are overseeing is educating students. And if you look at our board, the 3 trustees that are the most senior and have been elected, John Marcus from West County has like 20 years of teaching at Contra Costa College. Vicki Gordon had 7 years teaching in the Martinez and Pittsburgh districts. And like I said, I have 14 years, 10 teaching high school, 1 teaching at a 2-year college, which is very similar to Contra Costa, and then 3 years teaching undergraduate finance, mathematics, and statistics, as well as graduate economics and statistics. We know what's happening in the classroom. And that's what I think voters saw in me. Someone who has been in a classroom, has worked with students, knows their needs, and will continue to deliver, quite frankly, on the most important aspects. That is buildings for them to be in, and adequate pay, which it's interesting that the unions are upset about me and the other trustees for giving them a 3% pay increase just recently.
Okay.
So from a practical standpoint, I think that the voters will look at the two of us, and I'm expecting to have the same outcome, but we'll see. And
we'll see.
I will continue to be involved in terms of education.
Okay.
I don't know how.
Greg, Fernando, thank you so much for answering these important questions. Each of you now has a 2-minute closing statement. We'll start with Greg.
I thought it was a 1-minute closing statement.
No, you have 2. Well, if you only want to do 1, that's cool too.
All right. Well, I have a 1-minute closing statement, and I'll give the rest of the time to Fernando.
Okay.
Having served as the East Contra Costa College trustee for 8 years, I ask that voters vote for me again for another 4 years, when now being retired from being a college professor, which took a lot of my time, I will be able to devote as much time as I need to my top priorities. First, have the college district work with economic development officials in East Contra Costa to attract startup firms planning to hire thousands of local residents by agreeing to train those workers as needed at a low cost of the firm at the firm's site. That is what USS POSCO almost has. What USS POSCO did was they took their equipment, gave it to Los Medanos College, trained our professors to use that equipment, But then when there was a vacancy at USS Pasco, a supervisor would send an email to the professor and say, send your best 3 students on Monday at 1, 2, and 3 to fill a vacancy. Well, the students already knew the equipment. So the supervisor would point, run this, and pick the best qualified student for an $80,000 a year job. You might say, what happens to the other students? That's standard equipment. It's used everywhere. Well, let's do one better. Let's offer the 10 people setting up a startup to train their 990 additional employees right there at their site. So second, thank you. I thought I had 2 minutes.
You have 30 seconds still.
30 seconds. All right, I'll wrap up. Second, I want to have every high school student take no-cost community college courses, mostly in their high schools, to credit for both their diploma and the college degree. And I want to assure that the district takes all possible action to prevent our 50,000 students, 3,500 personnel, and any visitors to our 5 campuses from having COVID-19 infection. I ask for your vote in this November 2020 election. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Fernando, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Again, my 4 key areas that I'm running for is educational excellence and equity. We need to make sure that we have the right courses, because we train essential workers in respiratory therapy, firefighting, and nursing, and sometimes they cannot even get those courses, okay, due to lack of faculty or other things. Also, from an equity perspective, we need to make sure that we give access to as many students in the district as possible that we serve, including making sure that we have the demographics of our community representative. Secondly, I want to make sure that we ensure fiscal accountability and transparency. So things that are happening besides behind closed sessions where people are unethically putting reimbursements like Mr. Imholm did against policy are not done. I want to make sure that we work on our workforce, because it's going to be an economic engine for us. And as well, another thing, I want to make sure we do more on community outreach so we can get more students to come in. Now, for myself, a lot of people know I've already been involved in the community, in Rotary. I'm involved in a lot of things. I'm going to continue to be involved. I'm the 2020 Community Service Award winner, the Cesar Chavez Award, presented by Las Medanos College. Right now, we have a lack of leadership from the Community College District Board. In the last month, they decided not to renew 3 contracts of senior leaders, okay, that are really going to impact us because accreditation is coming. Greg has had some ethics violations that have been published for being involved in the hiring process, for trying to advocate for somebody to the chancellor. That's not right. That's not the role of the trustee. When we were trying to go ahead and talk to the community about building the campus of Trilogy, he advocated against it. We cannot advocate against educational resources for our community. I wish to tell you that as I go forward, I'm looking for your vote. This change is needed. This is 2020, and I'm looking to get the support of all the faculty and the rest of the community as I go forward. I really thank you for this time.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our forum for candidates running for the Contra Costa College District Ward 5 for the November 3rd election. Once again, our candidates are Fernando Sandoval and Greg Enholm. For more information on the candidates, visit votersedge.org. The Elections Division has set up multiple drop boxes for your ballots around the county. For the one nearest to you, please visit www.cocovote.us or call the office at 925-335-7800. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote by November 3rd. The deadline to register for this election is October 19th. Thanks for watching. I'm Bob Butler.